welcome everyone. I'm Ed from the Solo Quest channel. Welcome to another solo review. Today we will be taking a look at Pandemic Legacy Season 2. I think the first question that probably comes to a lot of people's minds is, should I even be watching this if I haven't played Season 1? I think you should. This is a game that can be played by people who haven't tried out Season 1. So in that sense, you're totally fine. You can watch this. There's no issues in playing this one if you haven't played the first one. I'll talk a bit about what connects them, but yeah, for sure. Second, I won't be spoiling a lot of the stuff in this game. So this is a legacy game, as you can see by the title, which means there are a lot of hidden elements throughout the whole experience. There are stickers that you will be applying, sort of envelopes that you will be opening up, new components that will come into play at certain stages of the game. So that's all a secret when you start this game. You start this in a, well, not a super basic, in a super basic way, but fairly basic for the overall experience you'll be having in the end of this this campaign. So I won't be spoiling the things you are unlocking throughout the experience, okay? I will be talking about, in general terms, what you will be able to do during this campaign, both the start and the end, but very general terms. I won't be specifying exactly what you're unlocking or spoiling the experience for anyone. That's very important, okay? Because this is something, besides a game, this is an experience, just like Season 1. I think it should be enjoyed in its fullest, and for that there won't be any spoilers in this review. I think I can be informative enough without spoiling what's coming inside this box as you are, experiencing and playing through this campaign. So with that said, let's start on the main points of Pandemic Legacy Season 2. So I guess a lot of what comes into people's mind is, what's the big difference here between Season 1 and Season 2? So for people who haven't played Season 1, that's almost, or at least it starts with the basic Pandemic formula. The one from the base game, where you have your world map, diseases are starting to appear, and it's like you have to put out some fires through the board, spots where those diseases appear. You have to rush there, remove those cubes, and try to prevent them from spreading throughout the game board. So that's the basic of Season 1. Of course, it evolves from there, and again, I won't be spoiling Season 1 either, but there are new mechanics that will be implemented, things that you can even find on the expansions from the base Pandemic game, On the Brink, or I haven't tried in the lab, but the On the Brink expansion does have some mechanics that relate to Season 1 as well. And Season 2, now I haven't played any basic Pandemic games, and I don't know if there is one that replicates this, or this replicates from the base game. This is very, very different. It seems similar. It kind of flips it, that basic formula on its head. So while on Season 1 you are putting the cubes as you draw decks from that infection deck, if you know Pandemic, I hope you know a little bit about Pandemic. You have an infection deck with all the cities, the spots on the game board. You are flipping those cards. The card you flip, you have to place a disease cube in there. So this kind of flips it on its head. You also have that infection deck. But as you flip a card, you have to, you're not putting a disease there. No, you have to consume a supply from that city, which means that city is like in distress, and it needs supplies to prevent it from falling into ruin. And basically here we are at the start of the game, we have a supply cache, and we have to spread those supplies throughout the locations we have unlocked on the board. So in that sense, it is an evolution, and for me, a big improvement. That's a big plus. It is the base game mechanic here, because you are making decisions even without starting the game. Before flipping a single card, you are having to choose on which locations you are placing your available supplies. And they are limited. At the start, you have quite a big amount of supplies. As the campaign progresses, those supplies will dwindle, and the locations actually will increase in size. So you really, as a player, will have to make a choice. Which cities do I want to supply, strongly, and which ones are maybe not so important, and I'll have to, put a little bit less supplies there. Maybe cities that I can reach really quickly. That's a strategy, of course. So yeah, you kind of have to make those choices even before you flip a single card in this game, and that for me is an improvement. There's more player agency at the setup, so it's not all random. You do have some agency where you are placing those supplies, and then throughout the whole game, again, it's going to be using that basic mechanic where you flip a card, you have to remove a supply, and as a player character, you have to move around the board, again resupplying all the locations, the ones you feel the need to. Okay, so again, that for me is a plus from the first game, because that base Pandemic, the season one used in season one and the base game, it's more of a reactive mechanic. You are basically just reacting at the start of the game, and here you are already planning, and that for me is really an improvement. I really enjoy this mechanic a lot more, because it opens up options in the design area to offer and throw in other stuff, other mechanics that the player can use to use in that initial setup of the board as you are placing your supplies even before the start of the game. So for me, yeah, that's an improvement. So something that I've mentioned just before and that I really enjoy a lot is the fact that while the supplies will dwindle as you go further into the campaign, the locations will actually increase. That is something that I really love about this game, is that the board itself, you don't have the board fully explored. You don't see the world as you do in other Pandemic games, pretty much. Well, at least the ones I know. It's an open board. You know the state of the world. You have those cities, and I think even season one, I think you had to connect a few cities, but at least you knew the locations. I'm not sure actually, but here the initial state of the world is like, it's pretty small. You really only know that small area where your characters live, and so you kind of have to go and explore the rest of the world. That's a mechanic that's right in here, and again, it's adding to that decision making. I think this game is more complex than the first one. There's a lot more decisions to be had, more crunchier decisions. It's more thinky, but again, I think there's more player agency, or at least the chance to, in this one. So basically, as you are playing, you're gonna have those emergencies popping up on the board. You have those cities that are left with no supplies, and a lot of the cards are in that discard pile, which means they are going on top of the infection deck, which means that they're coming back around very soon. So you kind of have to go to those places and put more supplies, because they are running out and they are in danger. But at the same time, the world is small, and you need to explore the world. You need to open up your available locations, because that's going to give you more resources to fight that tide that is coming against you. So yeah, that basically exploring the map is going to offer you a whole lot of new options, so new mechanics and new advantages for the characters to fight the onslaught of this epidemic that is bracing, the world as we know it in this setting right here. So again, you gotta have to make that choice. It's up to the player. You can just play the regular game, not really open up a lot of the world. Eventually, the game will be forcing you that discovery. So if you don't do it yourself, you will be it's going to be forced upon you. But the opening up of the board, for me, it's a big plus. I really like that little fight, exploration versus actually winning the game, because sometimes exploring, you kind of have to sacrifice, at least I did while playing. I had to sacrifice winning that particular game to exploring a particular area of the board, and maybe making my own job easier on future games. So it is kind of a choice, and again, more player agency. You will have to make that choice. Do I want, the greater good for myself, like being really well prepared for future games, or do I just want to win this one and do the best I can on the next ones? Maybe win them, maybe not. It's something that might come down weighing on you that particular try. Now, another plus for me here, that's a lot of pluses at the start, is the progression along this experience. So I talked a little bit about the progression on the board itself, on the world. As you are exploring and unlocking new areas, you will also be unlocking more tools for the characters themselves. As you explore the world, you may find laboratories or other locations that give you other tools, better tools to deal with the overall state of the world. Okay, so again, I'm trying not to be super specific here, but you will be given very nice tools that you can, if played well, they will really help you a lot in your journey in this game. I think the Season 2 is a little bit harder than Season 1, but again, it has more tools. I think there's more variability in the kind of mechanics that it implements. I think they went and explored a bit more here, which for me, it actually, they did really well. It ended in a great experience. Again, you're facing impossible odds, but you are given very good tools. And if you really set yourself up for future games well, if you really prepare, again, that setup is essential, the supplies and the progression is essential too. If you take the right upgrades, if you build the right things in the right locations, you'll make like a grid, a network of upgrades that your characters can really use to their better benefit, and be really successful against the campaign here, which at times is really relentless. So yeah, in that sense, I think the progression is really good. The upgrades are more meaningful. At least I found them more meaningful in this one. I finished both Season 1 and Season 2, and for me, I had a personal stake, an investment that was much bigger on this one, a lot because of the upgrades. I found them more useful. You could do a bit more better combos, let's say, between everything, both what's on the board and your characters. And then that really made me become more involved overall with the game. So the sense of progression again here, even though probably the number of upgrades is pretty much the same, I feel they are better designed, and they are overall better to suck you into that experience on this one. So all of this player agency that is being given to you while playing the game, another positive aspect that elevates this for me over Season 1, spoiler alert, I like this one a lot better, is that the sense of player agency that is put into your hands makes everything more rewarding. As you pull combos during games, as you can complete that impossible objective like in a super fast way because you prepared for that, as you win games in games, it feels way more rewarding in this game than on the first one. I don't know if it's because the first one was a bit more similar to that basic experience and I was already used to it, so maybe winning those games didn't mean as much to me, but I felt more rewarded and again more invested in this world. For sure. One of the things that maybe contributed to that as well is the setting, which is another plus for this game. It is the theme and setting. I absolutely adore post-apocalyptic settings. I'm a big fan of them, even though I don't own that many and I don't really know that many in board games. I mean, there's Fallen Land, there's Waste Nights That's Coming, Post-Human Saga, there's a Fallout, of course, but I think you can count them by by your hands, the number of board games that dip into that theme, at least the well-known ones. Of course, there's probably a few obscure, but yeah, this setting for me is fantastic, and it's an evolution from Season 1. It picks up from that story. It takes place quite a few years after Season 1, but the overall setting for me, it's much better. This is a plus for me, but this is a very personal one. People might not enjoy this setting at all. They might prefer the real world setting from Season 1, or maybe fantasy settings, which I also like in board games. So the setting and theme is very personal, but for me, again, it's a plus because I really enjoy it, and I think it fits the pandemic/epidemic theme as well very well. Both of them is a perfect marriage here on this box. All right, so now we start going into the not so positive things. Even though the setting is fantastic, and like I said, it is a continuation from Season 1, The story also is, of course. This will take place a few years after season 1. It continues that story, but in a not very successful way, in my opinion. I found this story to be pretty lackluster, to be honest. I felt completely detached from the story while playing. Now, I did have a big gap between my plays. I think I did like about 4 months, I believe. I played 4 months in cooperative with my girlfriend. She eventually grew tired of the game, and so I continued by myself, and I finished it by myself. I played solo, so that would be 6 months, right? No, sorry, 8 months. Math. So yeah, I played 8 of the months by myself, and I think 4 were in cooperative. And honestly, yeah, there was that big gap. But honestly, I never felt really attached to this story. I never found it meaningful. It had twists. It had like a big twist, but it wasn't very impactful. To be honest, it's not very. It's not an inspired story at all. It's not bad. It completely does its job, but it's not one of the things that will help you get sucked into the world. Thankfully, again, the upgrades were fantastic, and I was really into upgrading everything and getting that perfect setup for my game, so that I had, you know, a good advantage going into each month. But the story completely just blew past by me, and yeah, it's a neutral one for me because it's not bad. It's just not good either. So yeah, that's a neutral one there. Like I mentioned, I had a big gap there between plays, and there's another gap that I would like to talk about, which is the lull that this game suffers. There's a big lull in the middle of this campaign where there's really nothing happening, at least nothing different happening. I don't know if the game is trying to prepare you for what's coming, and I'll talk about that right after this point. But it's a lull of about 4 months where there's really no new objectives coming out. I believe it's 4 months. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, it felt like a big period for me. Especially if you lose a game and you have to repeat that month, it's going to extend that lull. So it might get a bit boring, and I can see some people maybe losing, you know, the interest in playing the game, and the game just sitting on the shelf when you hit that lull. So it's not like the gameplay becomes boring. It's the same gameplay, and there's no changes being inserted into the experience, into this legacy campaign, and that's why I'm calling it a lull, because yeah, I was using it to prepare myself. I kind of motivated myself to continue going through it, because I really want this upgrade and that upgrade, so I can have a combo when bad things, you know, escalate. I'll have answers for them. So I kind of motivated myself based on the upgrades, which I really enjoyed, as you might have seen already. But yeah, there's a lull there. Push through it. If you do have the game and you reach that lull, push through it. Things will change. But yeah, that's a negative right there. They could have, I don't know, done something a bit more dynamic, a bit more exciting on that period. Maybe insert more stories, since newer mechanics aren't being inserted. Insert more stories in some way. That could have been a good idea. But yeah, that's one of the negatives there. So from that, we're going into our less positive, which is the period after that lull I just talked about, which is, well, the final months, the ending of this campaign, which is epic. It is fantastic, phenomenal. It is an explosion of new mechanics, of impossible odds, of amazing tools, of fantastic discoveries, explorations, crazy events. Just a wonderful, wonderful ending to this campaign. I was baffled at all of the stuff that they were able to throw at me on those final months. It's objective after objective. You finish one, you get another one, another crazy one. It feels impossible. But again, all you've built until those final months is going to prove so helpful, and it's going to provide you with a way to actually overcome those impossible odds. Now, I was lucky enough, and I'll be honest, I'll call it luck. I built like an infrastructure for my characters, and I didn't really know what was coming. I kind of guessed it, and I did good. My upgrades were really helpful for that ending. I can see the ending crushing some people if they don't prepare quite nicely, which leads me from a positive to an, well, it is a bit of a negative, because I can see this really being really difficult for people who didn't prepare in the correct way. It's not that people are playing bad. You're not playing bad. I mean, I did horribly on season 1. I did better on season 2. Again, because I was a bit lucky with my upgrades. I kind of guessed what was coming. Not from the story, I can tell you. But I don't know why, but I did the upgrades right, and that was really helpful for that explosive ending. But yeah, it is going to be hard. That final mission, it is fantastic, but it's really hard. So I can see a lot of people struggling with this one right near the end. But again, it's the end. You're gonna push through it. You're really near ending this beautiful experience, and you should definitely go all out if you're in those final months. Again, for me, the hardest is going to be the lull. If you push through the lull, the ending, even if it becomes frustrating, I mean, you're right at the end. You'll be able to finish it. And I mean, even if you are unsuccessful, the campaign ends. You are given a final story, a final tidbit of story to read. You'll know the state of the world right after your campaign. But again, it might be a bit too punishing for people who didn't do the right upgrades up until that point. So in that sense, maybe, I don't know if they should allow you to change a few of the upgrades. That could be one of the ways to prevent that frustration for some players. But again, that's I'm almost nitpicking here because there aren't too many negatives with the game. But yeah, that's going to be one of the negatives, that that first possibility of frustration right at the end of the experience. Okay, so we've reached the end of our campaign. It's done. We've played through this story. So now what would we do with this box right here? Unfortunately, we can't play it again. There's really no... on Board Game Geek, you might get a few files to help you replay this, but in an official way, you're done. There's no replayability beyond these 12 months that you will be playing to experience this campaign. There's between 12 and 24 plays in the box, because if you lose 1 month, you will replay it, and then if you lose a second time, you just go into the second one. And if you win on the first play, you'll just move on to the next month. So okay, so there's a maximum of 2 plays per month here, and then you'll move on to the next. So again, it's a limited number of plays, and after you finish, again, you won't be able to replay the campaign. So is it worth it for the price point? That would be my question. Because, of course, yes, you won't be playing this 50 times, but which game do you really play 50 times? I'm sure your favorite games, you will play them probably that amount of times, 1 or 2 of them, but your overall collection won't see those number of plays. At least for most people, I would assume. I certainly don't play them, unfortunately, as much. So for me, for the price point, that number of plays is okay, but if you add in the experience that a legacy game offers, which is that sense of discovery, of new components being brought in, the decision making, all of those, the customization of your characters, of everything with the legacy elements, the stickers being placed on the rulebook, on your characters, on the board, honestly, I think it's worth the price. So while I don't want to... It's not a positive, of course, not being able to play the game after you finish the campaign. It's just a box that's sitting on your shelf. That's not positive. But honestly, I can't say for me that this is a negative either. For the money I spent, I think it was well worth it. So replayability here is after the campaign, okay, is a neutral point. Of course, there's replayability within this campaign that I've talked about previously. There's things being unlocked unless except that little lull there, okay? So again, replayability overall after the campaign, that's a neutral, well, that's a negative, but replayability overall, that's a neutral point for me because I think you are getting your money's worth with this box. Now, we've talked about all of this, but this is called the solo review, right? So what about the solo? Well, that's, I've got some bad news for you. So there isn't a solo mode within this box. You're playing the co-op game, you're playing the regular game. I could have called this Pandemic Legacy Season 2 review, not a solo review, because there's nothing particular different about the solo. It's just one person using more than one character. That's it. That's it for a lot of games, and this one is no exception. So, like I said, I started playing with my girlfriend in co-op, then I finished in solo. So both of them have their positives, honestly. It's always good to play with someone, sharing the decision space, and the upgrades, deciding what to do. It's less work for you because we started with one character each on the first month, didn't enjoy it that much. We moved on to 2 characters each. That's the much preferred way to play. I would always play this with 4 characters, which is the maximum. And if you are doing it solo, it's 4 characters for you to manage. Is it manageable? Totally, yes. There is no problem using 4 characters. You can definitely do it by yourself. You just have to organize your table in a very efficient way because it takes a bit of space with all the cards in the character's hands. But apart from that, it's super manageable. And it's actually, there's a plus for the solo as well. So basically, like I said, you have a lot of upgrades, a lot of character abilities, and if you are doing it solo, you can kind of push combos easier. So while playing with someone else wants that upgrade for their character. I mean, you're not going to say, oh no, you can't get it because I'm seeing this for the future. Well, you can do it, but that's too much of an alpha gamer. That might not be too fun for the other person. So while playing solo, you have that chance to just pick up what you want in terms of upgrades, and you can set up combos easier. And again, you will feel more rewarded while playing because you will see, that come into fruition. All of your plans will be meaningful. It will have an impact on your wins and your losses. But again, it will feel very rewarding to see those plans come into play. While playing co-op, that might not appear so much. Again, that sense can appear as well while playing as a group. It's totally viable, of course. But it's just a small positive of the solo here is that, again, it's easier to set up combos and it's easier possibly to prepare maybe for what's coming. But again, in terms of solo modes, there really isn't one. So is a solo mode a positive or a negative? It's neutral. It's neither, because you're just playing multi-handed. I'm fine with that. In this game, some games not so much, but on this one, super manageable. Again, it has its positives and its negatives, so it's a neutral point. So that's it. Those are the main points I feel that should be discussed here regarding Pandemic Legacy Season 2. Coming into a bit of a summary from what I think of the game. Again, I had a fantastic time with it. I think I got my money's worth out of this box. I'm okay with not being able to play it again. If I wanted to, I would have to buy another copy. I won't. I enjoyed my time with it. I've seen what this has to offer. I think it's for people who enjoyed Season 1. This is, for me, it's an upgrade. It's a better experience. Although, in terms of the base mechanic, that putting the supplies on the board, some people might not enjoy it as much. It's a bit more personal. For me, I enjoy it more. The upgrades are definitely better. The new mechanics that you will be unveiling during the campaign, for me, are better, are stronger mechanics. So overall, I think this is an upgrade from Season 1, although I know a lot of people think otherwise. If you haven't played Pandemic ever and you're just seeing this, well, because it popped up on the channel, should you get this first? Okay, so that's a good question. Now, I would probably start my Pandemic journey with either the base game or Pandemic Season 1. I would not start here because, again, this is a little bit detached from that original idea of the Pandemic world. Now, if you're starting, I would start with those two. But let's say you played the base game a lot, you played it a lot, you have the On Brink expansion, you played it a lot. Should you go to Season 1? I don't know if you should, because I don't know if it's going to offer you that many differences, honestly. There will be a few, of course, and there's that story element to it, which is nice, and it's fun to go through that story, which is better than this one. It has stronger twists, more impactful. But if you just want an overall different game with different mechanics, then I would go for this one. Again, it is a different experience from the first those original Pandemics, and for me it's the better one. This is my favorite Pandemic experience. I really enjoyed it. I will not give this a commendation award. I don't think it should have a distinction, but it is a hell of a game, and I really enjoyed my time with it. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Pandemic Legacy Season 2. Hope this wasn't too long. Again, I really wanted to touch up on a few points. Hopefully I did it successfully without spoiling things while still trying to be informative. I hope I was informative and useful. And again, yeah, if you found this useful, let me know in the comments. Do leave a like in the video, subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you all in the next time. Till then, see ya, stay safe everyone, bye bye.